You're an adult. You know perfectly well there is nothing down there. You switch off the basement light. You turn around. And you walk up those stairs faster. Then you walked down them. Nobody is following you. And still, something in you wanted to run. And that something is older than any house ever built. Today we're talking about the fear of the dark, about why almost every child has it, and why almost no adult ever fully loses it. Let's start with the children. A research team led by Peter Murris interviewed 176 children, aged 4 to 12, not the parents, the children themselves. 73% of them reported nighttime fears, almost 3 out of 4. And here's the part that made me stop reading for a second. The researchers asked the parents the same thing. Only 34% of them knew about it. Roughly half. The rest were sitting in the living room, believing the child next door was fine. So if you ever thought you were the only one lying there scared, you almost certainly weren't. Nobody was just talking about it. And now it gets strange. Because if I asked you to guess, when this fear peaks, you'd probably say the very little ones. The data says otherwise. Among 4 to 6-year-olds, it's just under 60%. Among 7 to 9-year-olds, it's 85%. So the fear doesn't simply fade with time. First, it grows. And that makes sense the moment you know what happens in a head during those years. A 2-year-old has almost no imagination. What he can't see simply isn't there. But at around 3 or 4, something switches on that will stay with him for life. The ability to invent things that don't exist. That is a magnificent ability. It's the beginning of every story, every invention, every plan. It just arrives alone. The second ability you'd need alongside it, the one that reliably tells you what's invented and what's real, that one shows up years later. So a 4-year-old has a machine in his head that can produce figures, and no machine that switches them off again. And that first machine runs at full power, exactly when the lights go out. But hold on. That explains what a child fills the dark with. It doesn't explain why anything has to be filled in at all. Why the child doesn't simply think, it's dark, so what? For that, we have to go back much further. Further than you're probably expecting. Picture a human being, 2 million years ago. He has no claws, no fangs. He is slower than almost anything that wants to eat him. And he has one more problem. At night, he can barely see. Our eye is built for daylight. And we're missing something cats and dogs have. That mirrored layer behind the retina. The one that lights up in headlights. Below the brightness of a half moon. Our color cells simply quit. We are a daytime species. In a universe that is dark half the time. And in that dark half, our ancestor was not the hunter. The anthropologists Donna Hart and Robert Sussman collected everything that ate early humans and their relatives. The list is longer than you'd like. Leopards, saber-toothed cats, hyenas, crocodiles, giant snakes, and birds of prey. Sussman estimates that roughly 6 to 10% of early humans ended up as prey. That's an estimate, not a measurement. And that needs saying. But it rests on something very solid. On tooth marks in bones, on talon marks across skulls, and on holes in one skull cap that the fangs of a saber-toothed cat fit into exactly. And then there is one find that pulls this whole calculation into a single face. They call it the Taung Child, a skull found in South Africa, about 2 million years old, a child roughly 3 years of age. For a long time, people assumed a big cat had killed it. Then researchers compared the damage with the skulls of monkeys taken by large eagles, and the patterns matched. The scratches around the eye sockets, the breaks at the back of the head. This child was taken by a bird. I'm saying that as calmly as I can, because it isn't a horror story. It's a finding. And that is exactly why it lands harder than any horror story. While we're here, one quick thing. Where was it for you? Under the bed or in the closet? Just put the one word in the comments. I'm genuinely curious how that splits. Moving on. Because if the night was that dangerous, the next question comes immediately. How did humans sleep at all? A team led by David Sampson looked into that, with the Hadza in Tanzania, one of the last hunter-gatherer groups. 20 nights, 33 people, sensors on their wrists. The result? Across those 20 nights, there were 18 minutes, in which everyone was asleep at the same time. 18 minutes, in 20 nights. On average, about a third of the group was awake, or at least half awake. Not because they slept badly, but because the older ones got tired early and the younger ones late. A seamless watch that nobody had planned. And then there was fire, humanity's first nightlight technology. Here's the point. A human lying alone and unprotected in total darkness was, for almost all of our history, the absolute exception. It essentially never happened. And today, we put 4-year-olds down exactly like that. Which brings us to your brain. Because none of this is history. It's still running. The neuroscientist Christian Grillon ran an experiment. So simple, it almost feels unfair. Adult people. A room, a sudden, loud noise. Once with the lights on, once in the dark. He measured how hard they flinched. In the dark, they flinched noticeably harder. Not children. Adults who knew perfectly well nothing would happen to them. And Grillon could show that it wasn't because people pay more attention in the dark. It was the darkness itself. To your nervous system, it is not a neutral state. It's a context. And the context reads, careful, you currently know too little. And what does a brain do when it knows too little? It fills in. There is a region in your head that deals with faces and nothing else. And 2 dots and a line are enough for it. That's why you see a face in a power socket, or in the clouds. And it's why the bathrobe on the hook, at 3 in the morning, is no longer clothing, but somebody. Behind that sits a calculation. Your body runs without asking you. Say something rustles in the bushes. You can be wrong in 2 ways. You mistake the wind for a predator, and you're startled for nothing. Cost, a fast pulse. Or you mistake a predator for the wind. Cost, everything. A system that treats those 2 errors as equal goes extinct. A system that would rather be startled 100 times for nothing survives. You are descended from the second kind. And that's why some of this fear stays. Exactly how much, nobody really knows. There are surveys. But almost all of them come from mattress companies. And they sell nightlights. I don't need those numbers anyway. Because you already know. You know the spot in the hallway, where you speed up a little at night. You know the reflex, not to let a foot hang over the edge of the bed. You never explained it to yourself. You just do it. And here's the part I actually wanted to make this video for. This fear is not a fault in you. It is not a sign of weakness. It's an inheritance. A program that, over millions of years, carried through exactly those people you are descended from. The child calling for you at night is not being fearful. It's being equipped. And if this fear ever grows so large that it takes someone's sleep for good, there is good help for that, with someone trained for it. Next time, we stay with your brain's tricks, but it gets more expensive, because your head treats something as free that is quietly costing you money. And it does that every single time you click one particular button. If you know somebody who'll be having this exact argument tonight, send them this. And if you like explanations like this one, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next video. I'm Poppy. Thank you for listening this far. And tonight, go ahead and leave the hallway light on. You're in very good company. See you soon.